Welcome back to the days. Today we will learn about the terrifying developments that are set to shake Salem to its very core during the week of September 22nd to 26th. As an ominous power outage creates the perfect storm for a dangerous stalker to emerge from the shadows and threaten the safety of one beloved resident. Salem plunges into darkness. The tranquil streets of Salem will be transformed into a landscape of fear and uncertainty when a mysterious blackout strikes the entire town, leaving residents vulnerable and exposed to the dangers that lurk in the darkness. This citywide power outage represents far more than a simple electrical malfunction. It serves as the catalyst for a series of terrifying events that will forever change the lives of Salem's most cherished families. The timing of this blackout appears suspiciously calculated, suggesting that someone with malicious intent may have orchestrated this chaos to provide the perfect cover for their sinister plans. As the lights flicker and die throughout Salem, residents will find themselves trapped in various locations across town, creating an atmosphere of helplessness and dread that will intensify with each passing moment. The darkness will serve as both a blessing and a curse. While some couples may find unexpected passion in the shadows, others will discover that evil forces have been waiting for precisely this opportunity to strike. Stephanie Johnson becomes a target. In the heart of Salem's town square, Stephanie Johnson will experience a bone-chilling realization that she is no longer alone in the darkness. As she attempts to navigate through the eerily silent streets, a growing sense of paranoia will consume her, and she will become acutely aware that someone is watching her every move from the concealment of the shadows. The psychological torment will intensify as Stephanie discovers that her mysterious observer is not merely a curious bystander, but rather a calculating predator who has been meticulously planning this encounter for weeks or possibly months. The terror will reach its peak when Stephanie notices the unmistakable silhouette of a figure clutching what appears to be a bouquet of flowers, a seemingly romantic gesture that takes on a deeply sinister meaning given the circumstances. Her voice will tremble with fear as she calls out into the void, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Desperately hoping that her imagination is playing tricks on her, yet knowing deep in her heart that a very real threat is closing in. The flowers themselves may represent a twisted callback to happier times, serving as a reminder of a relationship that began with promise but descended into a nightmare of abuse and control. The return of Jeremy Horton. All evidence points to the stalker being none other than Jeremy Horton, Stephanie's abusive ex-boyfriend who has apparently returned to Salem with unfinished business and a dangerous obsession that has only grown stronger during his absence. The casting of Michael Rourke in what appears to be the recast role of Jeremy signals that this storyline will delve deep into the darkest chapters of Stephanie's past, bringing her face to face with the trauma she thought she had left behind forever. Jeremy's previous relationship with Stephanie was marked by manipulation, control, and ultimately physical violence that nearly cost her life when he attempted to drown her in a hot tub during a fit of rage. The timing of Jeremy's return is particularly insidious, as it coincides with the publication of Stephanie's tell-all book, One Stormy Night, which contains thinly veiled references to their toxic relationship. Jeremy's keen intelligence and intimate knowledge of Stephanie's writing style will allow him to immediately recognize himself in the pages of her manuscript, fueling his anger and desire for revenge. His criminal history, which includes charges of fraud and other illegal activities, demonstrates that he is capable of elaborate schemes and has no respect for the law when it comes to getting what he wants. The fact that Jeremy has chosen the cover of darkness and a citywide power outage to make his presence known suggests that he has been carefully studying Stephanie's routines and habits, waiting for the perfect moment to reinsert himself into her life. His decision to carry flowers during his stalking activities reveals a twisted psychology that views romantic gestures as tools of intimidation and control rather than expressions of genuine affection. A web of danger and deception. The power outage will create a domino effect of dangerous situations throughout Salem, with Stephanie's stalking ordeal representing just one thread in a complex tapestry of chaos and vulnerability. As residents find themselves trapped in elevators, isolated in darkened buildings, and cut off from communication with the outside world, the normal safety nets that protect Salem citizens will be completely disabled. This creates an environment where predators like Jeremy can operate with impunity, knowing that help will be slow to arrive and that their victims will be truly alone with their terror. The strategic nature of Jeremy's return during this particular crisis suggests that he may have been monitoring Salem's infrastructure and waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. His previous criminal activities demonstrate that he possesses the intelligence and resources necessary to orchestrate such an elaborate plan, potentially even having a hand in causing the power outage itself. The flowers he carries may contain hidden surveillance devices or other tools that will allow him to track Stephanie's movements even after their initial encounter. The psychological warfare begins. Jeremy's approach to terrorizing Stephanie extends far beyond simple physical intimidation. He understands that psychological warfare can be far more effective in breaking down his victim's defenses and rebuilding the control he once held over her. The decision to reveal his presence gradually, through subtle signs of surveillance and carefully orchestrated, coincidental encounters, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how to maximize fear and uncertainty. By remaining in the shadows initially, Jeremy forces Stephanie to question her own perceptions and wonder whether she is truly in danger or simply experiencing paranoid delusions. The choice to make his presence known during a citywide emergency also serves to isolate Stephanie from her support network, as law enforcement and emergency services will be overwhelmed with other crises throughout Salem. This calculated timing ensures that Jeremy will have maximum access to his target while minimizing the risk of interference from protective figures like Steve Johnson or Alex Kyriakis, who would normally rush to Stephanie's aid at the first sign of trouble. As this terrifying storyline unfolds over the coming weeks, viewers can expect to witness a masterclass in psychological thriller storytelling that will keep audiences on the edge of their seats while exploring the long-lasting impact of domestic violence and the courage required to break free from toxic relationships that refuse to remain in the past. Theo's anger boils over, a painful confrontation about JJ's return. On Days of Our Lives, emotions ran high as Theo made his way into Jada's office, carrying the weight of old wounds that had never truly healed. His visit was not one of casual conversation or friendly catching up. It was driven by something much deeper, something that still lived raw in his memory, the shooting that changed his life. And at the center of his pain stood JJ, the man who had pulled the trigger. From the moment Theo stepped inside, it was clear he wasn't there to mince words. He went straight to the point, telling Jada that she had made a grave mistake in hiring JJ back onto the force. The accusation hung in the air, heavy with bitterness. Theo wasn't just questioning a decision, he was reliving his trauma, demanding to know how such a thing could happen. Jada, ever calm and steady in her position, acknowledged immediately that she was aware of the incident. She knew about the shooting, the investigation, and the fallout that followed. But she also did what many viewers were likely thinking in that moment. She asked Theo the obvious question. Hadn't he already forgiven JJ? Hadn't that chapter been closed years ago? Theo's answer revealed the heartbreaking truth. Yes, he had forgiven JJ, but not because the pain vanished, and not because the memory disappeared. He forgave JJ because JJ had accepted responsibility and stepped away from the badge. That act, that choice, had given Theo some sense of closure. It allowed him to believe that JJ recognized the weight of what had happened, that he knew his actions had consequences too heavy to ignore. For Theo, forgiveness came with the understanding that JJ would not continue down the same path. But now, with JJ returning to the force, that fragile peace had been shattered. Theo's forgiveness had been based on a certain reality, and that reality no longer existed. Jada listened with compassion, and for a moment, the viewer could see the struggle on her face. She wanted to reassure Theo, to let him know that this wasn't a reckless decision. She explained that JJ had gone through extensive background checks, that he had undergone cultural sensitivity training, and that the shooting, while tragic, had been officially deemed clean. Her words were meant to comfort, but they rang hollow in Theo's ears. To him, no amount of paperwork or training could erase what had happened. And then, Theo's voice cracked through the tension with an even deeper frustration. This wasn't just about the shooting or the policies. or the legal justifications. This was personal. JJ had been his friend. And as a friend, Theo believed JJ owed him the courtesy of a conversation before making the choice to put on the badge again. That betrayal cut even deeper than the fear. In Theo's eyes, JJ's silence spoke volumes. It felt like a dismissal of the pain he carried every day. The scene became almost unbearable in its intensity. Theo's emotions were raw, his words a mixture of anger and grief. He wasn't just advocating for himself. He insisted that this was about protecting others, about ensuring that no one else would suffer the way he had. His plea was clear: watch him. Don't let him hurt anyone else. It was heartbreaking because, beneath the fury, there was still a trace of the young man who once trusted JJ, who once believed in him as a friend. That trust had been fractured, and now Theo stood torn between past bonds and present fears. Jada, despite her sympathy, could not bend to Theo's demands. She would not fire JJ, not for this reason, not at Theo's urging alone. As the head of her department, she had to trust in the system she was upholding. But she did not dismiss Theo either. She promised to keep an eye on things, to remain vigilant. It wasn't the resolution Theo had hoped for, but it was all she could offer. Still, the damage was done. Theo left the office furious, his heart heavy with disappointment. Viewers could see it written all over his face. This was not the closure he had sought. Instead, it reopened wounds he had fought so hard to scar over. His frustration wasn't just with JJ, but with the system, with the way things were explained away by phrases like deemed clean. For Theo, the reality was simpler and harsher. A bullet had changed his life forever, and now the man who fired it was being given the chance to carry a gun again. This confrontation left fans shaken, not only because of the heated exchange, but because of what it represented. Soap operas often thrive on love triangles and secret affairs, but this storyline carried a weight of its own. It was about trust, trauma, and the difficulty of moving on when the past refuses to stay buried. For longtime viewers who remember the original shooting storyline, the scene hit especially hard. It reminded us that forgiveness is never simple, and that the scars of violence don't fade just because someone says, "I'm sorry." Theo's final words, a plea mixed with warning, echoed in the silence of Jada's office long after he was gone. Keep an eye on him. To Theo, this wasn't just about friendship lost. It was about justice, accountability, and the hope that no one else would ever experience the same pain. As this chapter unfolds, one thing is certain: Theo's anger isn't going away anytime soon. His fury is more than personal resentment. It's a voice for the wounded, a challenge to the idea of second chances, and a reminder that in Salem, the past has a way of crashing into the present, no matter how hard the characters try to move forward.